Good afternoon, councillors and members of senior staff and members of the clergy in the gallery. Thank you very much for being here for the September meeting of Temora Shire Council. I declare the meeting open and advise council that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public consumption. All present today are reminded that while we speak that we're agreeing that our views and our comments are being recorded and published, and we're also reminded that if or when we speak, that we're of course to be respectful to others and use appropriate language as we always do. Temora Shire Council accepts no liability, of course, for any defamatory offensive remarks suggested during this council meeting. And with those words, I am very pleased to invite the chairman of the Temora Christian Leaders Group, Pastor Patricia Morris, to lead us in our opening prayer. Thank you, Pastor Morris.
Let us pray. Almighty God, ruler of every nation, as we gather in the chamber of local government this afternoon, we give you thanks for the life of your servant, our Queen Elizabeth II, whose faithful obedience to her calling and her leadership with grace and dignity have inspired generations. May her example of sacrificial service and dedication to duty continue to inspire us all in this nation, Australia. Be close to all those who mourn her, that we may find comfort and hope in your love. We pray for our new King, Charles III. Bless his reign and the life of our nation. Help us to work together so that truth and justice, harmony and fairness flourish among us. And now, Lord God, we commit this council meeting to you and pray for clarity, wisdom and direction as our Shire leaders discuss matters important for our Shire community. And we ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very, very much. Beautiful, beautiful words. Now, we go on to apologies. The council's information, the Director of Environmental Services has had a sad passing in his family and the loss of his grandmother, who was an amazing 101 years of age. So, of course, our collective thoughts and prayers are with Mr. Dunstan and his family, from council and the wider community, and the General Manager has listed there that will be showing, expressing our sympathy formally in the coming days. And also, besides Mr. Dunstan's an apology, we have our Executive Assistant, Mrs. Rands, and we wish Mrs. Rands a speedy recovery from her current situation. Would someone please move that Councillor Bushell did flag that she would be a little late, so she will be. So with that, would someone care to move that the apologies are approved? Thank you, Councillor Good. Second information, please, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Any declaration of any interest, please, Councillor. Oh. That's a can of cake for listeners. So the declaration, I just had a couple in relation to Murrumbidgee Local Health District and Temora Masonic Lodge. There's no further declarations this time. We gave a confirmation of the previous minutes of the August meeting of Temora Shire Council. Someone that was present care to move that they be received as true and correct, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Reinhold moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Mr. General Manager, any matters arising, please?
No, sir.
Thank you. Council, we now go to mayoral minute. Through this mayoral minute, I formally acknowledge the very sad passing of Her Most Gracious late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the age of 96. On ascending to the throne on the 6th of February 1952, vivacious and capable princess became Queen of the United Kingdom and their Commonwealth realms, including Australia. The late Majesty served as our monarch until the day she passed away on the 8th of September of this year. Queen Elizabeth II remains the longest serving monarch in English history and the longest serving female head of state in the history of the world. Our Queen has dedicated her long 70-year reign to serving her subjects in the United Kingdom and throughout the Commonwealth of Nations. Late Majesty the Queen has countless qualities that have endeared her to us all. Among those special attributes include our Queen's resilience, of being open to some change where necessary whilst maintaining certain traditions, her ability to make others feel extra special, separating herself from the political fray, her commitment to duty, the quiet but strong Christian faith, the warmth, the integrity, the vision, the work ethic, and many, many more. Most of all, it is our Queen's grace that has touched generations of her subjects and others very deeply. In an ever-changing world, our late Queen has been a constant source of stability and inspiration. We cannot underestimate the importance Her late Majesty's positive impact has had on our nation and our Commonwealth and throughout the world. On behalf of my fellow councillors, our staff and every citizen of Temora Shire, I warmly thank the late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for her life of selfless service. Her memory and legacy will certainly live on. I formally place on record our deepest and profound sympathy with the late Majesty's family, including our new sovereign, King Charles III. They will all remain in our collective prayers and thoughts. I advise that in accordance with our federal government's guidance regarding how citizens may express their sympathy and affection for the late Majesty, Council will be holding a planting ceremony for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, of course with the commemorative tree ceremony, which now has an enhanced significance. This event will take place tomorrow, Friday the 16th of September, Callaghan Park here in Temora. Our federal member for Riverina, the Honourable Michael McCormack MP, will be carrying out the official planting, with our citizens also invited to attend the ceremony, which will commence from 12:30. Temora Shire Council also partnering with our Temora Shire ministers, priests and pastors to host a community memorial service in honour of our late Queen. The memorial service will be held on our National Day of Mourning, Thursday the 22nd of September, at St Paul's Anglican Church. After a brief but dignified service, mourners will then enjoy morning tea in the parish hall. I warmly invite all councillors, staff and every citizen to this important service. Council will continue to have the condolence book available to our Shire community, which an overwhelming number of our citizens have already taken up this special opportunity. As a further mark of respect on the passing of our cherished sovereign, I ask all Temora Shire councillors, our senior staff and members of our gallery to please rise in our places and observe a minute's silence in memory of our late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you very much. Councillors, there's a recommendation there, council to consider that warm letter of sympathy and passing of the late Majesty the Queen be written to King Charles III from Temora Shire Council and our community, and a separate letter congratulating His Majesty King Charles III on his ascension to the throne, and further that the remainder of the mayoral minute be noted. So I'm happy to move that mayoral minute. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. Is there a discussion, comment, or any other council would like to pay tribute to the late sovereign? If not, thank you and welcome, Councillor Bushell. So I'm going to put the motion for this special mayoral minute. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I do thank the chamber. Council, let's now proceed to our business paper, white pages on page 8. We have election of delegates 5.1, the mayor and the deputy mayor, the general manager.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, as you can see, for the first item on the agenda is the election of mayor and deputy mayor. Those two positions were elected in September last year. As it's a 2-year appointment, there's no need to undertake that. It is there for council's information. Sorry, January, after the last council.
Thank you. Normally it's September. Thank you. Councillors, there is a recommendation, page 8, that the report be noted. Thank you, Councillor Good. Move that way. Second information, Councillor Judd. Thank you. Move and second. Further discussion. More information, all those about it, please say aye. Hope you know. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we now proceed to page 9, 5.2, committees and delegates, and there has been an updated version on councillors' desk. Actually had the incumbents, which we thought may be helpful to council. Do you have anything to add, Mr. General Manager, this time?
Not really. The only thing is just to note that there has been a change to one of those, and that is the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee, which is previously the Internal Audit Committee, which had 4 council on it. But with there was a report went to council earlier this year. With the new guidelines of the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee, now council don't actually get a vote on that committee. So, but there is one councillor who is elected, that's Councillor McLaren, who's a non-voting member of that committee.
Thank you. Councillors, you see, sorry, General Manager.
Just one other thing, Mr. Mayor, and that is you will note that there are a number of additional people who have applied for the committees. Could I recommend that, happy with those people to go to the committee, that the resolution actually be that you refer back to the committees for consideration, because it hasn't gone to the committee as yet. But as long as council is happy with to refer those to the current committees.
Yes. Councillors, I know we've tried this in previous years, and again it's up to you. But councillors, if there was a desire for those councillors that are currently serving on those various committees happy with the status quo, that would be a simple resolution. If there was some that wanted to get out or come on, if it was possibly appropriate, then obviously we could accommodate that. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would support that. I know with one of the committees we've only met twice in the last 9 months, I think. So I'd be happy to move that way that we current members be voted on as
reappointed.
reappointed.
And further that the community
Organisation fee
community positions be
between those committees.
referred to the relevant council committees. Yes, thank you. So we have a second, councillor Bushell. You seconding? No? Thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion, councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the gentleman here, I think I sent an email, I sent an EOI as an individual, not as a councillor of the two committees, and that wasn't rectified in this updated report. So I expressed an interest for the Browns and as a non-councillor. This is a committee member, it's not ownership.
Okay, thank you, councillor Bushell. So the general manager, we can add councillor Bushell as a private citizen.
Yes, my apology. There was a request from councillor Bushell from Belinda Bushell.
Michael Bale.
As private citizen to be a committee member of that committee.
Is it of the Heritage and
The Friends,
Friends?
because I actually didn't make
So
work.
two. Okay, thank you. So as mover and second, I'm happy to have that concluded. Thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion? Go to councillor Irvine.
Yeah, just in relation to the sole committee that I put my hand up for, it's been a really light work, mate. It's now September and there's been no single meeting for this management committee. So the place must be running like the top. So I don't know whether there's any need for the committee to stay in place if we've been 9 months without meeting. So that's the comment I make in regards to that.
Thank you, councillor Irvine. The general manager, you got a comment, please?
Only to concur that there has been a meeting with the risk management committee. The reason for that is that the line of command between the risk management committee and the area is still being clarified with the government. So we hope to have something. One that will have a role to play as will the internal audit committee, but we'll go back to the area. How that mechanism is going to work, we will know at this stage.
Thank you. But we will be kept informed, councillor Irvine, as will council more broadly. And just further discussion, just also thank our Secretary of Engineering and Environmental Services, Ms. Burnett, for stepping up in the role for Mrs. Rand. So we thank very much the Secretary. There's no further discussion, councillor Judd.
Yeah, there was one position that last year that the Lockton Regional Transport Committee didn't realise they were elected. Anyone else would like to have a go? The next meeting is actually on the 1st of October, I think, which is a long weekend. And Port Kembla, anyway, what I'm saying is, if someone else would like to have a go, then have a go. Former council, no, we can use the delegates.
So, councillor Judd, thank you for that. But if there wasn't any interest, are you prepared to continue, or would you prefer? Like, do you see value in us having a seat at the table?
It's a long term. It's a long term thing, because dealing with MMR and all the other issues as well. Yes, it's a matter of finding time to go all these things.
Thank you. So you are happy to stay if there's no, unless there's a ballot, of course, you withdraw.
Yes.
Right. Thanks very much, councillor Judd. If there's no further discussion, councillors, I'll put the motion to you. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Again, thank you all so much for your previous service, for those that have served, and certainly, I certainly acknowledge councillor Irvine as far as he's sitting in on different committees when he has the time to sit and listen and learn. I think that's great if councillors have that opportunity. Just a reminder, you are all welcome, even if you're not voting members of that committee, you're still able to attend, of course, and have a say. But then, of course, as you know, it all comes back to this council to be considered further. So again, thank you very much for that. Council, let's now proceed over to page 22, the minutes of the George Shire Council Youth Advisory Committee. And I was the chairman of that meeting. If someone happy to move that the report be received. Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. No. Motion carried. Thank you. The report is there for your information, councillors. As my fellow member on that committee, Councillor Bushell, did you have any comment you'd like to make in relation to youth advisory?
Only what I said in the meeting, that's the very fun community involved.
Thank you very much. Well, there's nothing further. Is someone prepared to move the report with recommendations, please? Councillor Oliver, Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Further motion carried. Thank you. Page 31. The minutes of the Yorkshire Council Access and Equity Committee meeting, and the chairman of that committee happens to be the Director of Environmental Services, Mr. Dunstan, who is an apology. Is someone prepared to move the minutes of the Access and Equity Committee meeting be received? Thank you, Councillor Bushell. Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Further motion carried. Thank you. There is a report there for council's consideration, a series of recommendations. Is there anything that any member of that committee wishes to highlight, or if there's a period of comment from any councillor? Councillor Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 33, the water hazard issues, particularly area park. I should express my disappointment with the committee that being an access and equity committee, we sort of sent throw up the hands and say all too hard, and just handball it onto some future management plan we may or may not get again. But I certainly would have liked to see some investigation into options. And I know when talking to Councillor Oliver some time ago at the railway, talking about ramps and that, and we were dealing then in aluminium ramps still available, which is certainly be a lot better than any heavy steel ones. But I would have liked to see different options looked at. So, you know, that's, I'm not happy with that report.
Thanks, Councillor Joe. Well, in relation to 4.2 water hazard issues, I'm happy to receive information from you if you want to test the meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that we ask the engineering department to investigate options for access in area park.
Thank you. And the report will come back at a future meeting. Okay, thank you. Is there a second from Councillor Reinhold? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? I go to Councillor Bush.
I'd just like to comment and say that there is frame rates already in that main street, so the accessibility is there. The reason for the committee making that decision today. If you look at a red going out with that photo, it could be about 3 metres in length. If we continue on getting the rain, the saturation that we are, how far do we go with this red? Because it's going to get more and more. So that's why it was brought up to say that, you know, let's look at it as a future within that plan, because how long is a piece of street?
Thanks very much, Councillor Bushell. I'm going to go to Councillor Irvine.
I was present at that meeting and after the discussions, and I think there is an option for a temporary access ramp in that situation. The photograph is one photograph from the full length of the main street, and I think there may, you know, the engineering department, when they actually assess this, may find that there are more suitable opportunities where the length of the ramp may be shorter. So I would like to see it investigated, because there's, but although it's a very rare occurrence, obviously someone in a wheelchair can't get across that footpath when it's got that much room. So we do have to consider addressing that in my opinion.
Thanks, councillor Ryan. So you're effectively supporting the motion that's before council.
Yes, I am.
I'll go to councillor Judd.
Yeah, Councillor Wilson mentioned the pram ramps. Actually, the pram ramps are ideal in dry weather, but where the pram ramps are, actually it's wider there with water than the rest of the gardens. They're no good in wet weather.
Thank you, councillor Judd. So council, just to mention the motion that's before us, have we got that there? So in relation to 4.3,
So the engineering department investigate options for providing access to.
yep, so that's, well, that was moved by councillor Judd and councillor Irvine, councillor Reinhold. Thank you. We'll get there. Thank you. That in relation to 4.2 water hazard issues in access and equity, that the engineering department investigate options for providing access there in Park. Councillor Judd, sorry, Councillor Alder, if you don't mind, can I just clarify this motion? Thank you. Councillor Judd?
It just means aren't there very parts what they're trying to do. It's a,
In reference to water hazard
yes.
issues, thank you. So page 33, 4.2 water hazard issues. I'm going to councillor Alder.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Something like what's at on the water centre would probably suffice. Had one of those ramps either side of the street, probably more so on the eastern side, I think is where the main problem is. And someone who is in one of the businesses there can just wheel it out as required is probably all it needs. So that'd be my cost fix. Something that's readily available and easy to operate. So thank you.
Thanks, councillor Alder. I'm sure that if this motion gets up, the engineers will consider those comments. So thank you very much. Now, councillor Judd and councillor Ryan, are you happy with the motion that's on the screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion just in relation to report on page 33, 4.2, water hazard issues. All those in that, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. Just remember, councillors, when we do eventually get the report, council may not wish to do anything, but at least you can have a very serious look and see what options can be considered. Councillor Judd.
Probably need drought by then.
Thank you. Councillors, the remainder of the report of the Access and Equity Committee, someone prepared to move to report, remainder of the report with recommendations. Councillor Judd.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. Let's move that way. Second for the motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sinclair, move the second. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. Let's go over, council, to page 44. Minutes of the Victoria Agriculture and Innovation Centre Partnership Committee. And in the absence of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, who's the chairman, Councillor Judd was the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the report has been received.
Thank you. Councillor Judd has moved that the report is received. Do we have a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Judd, do you have any items you wish to draw the council's attention, please?
Oh, no, the manager of the station had reported a number of things, and they're all listed there. Anyone got any questions? Okay.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. We'll note that there is there on 21st of October, which is that a Friday? Is it? Yeah, Friday the 21st of October, we will receive an invitation from the board of Farming for councillors and senior staff to enjoy a meet and greet with the board and the staff for those that are available. So we look forward to receiving that invitation. I think that'll be a really positive occasion for those who will be able to attend. Councillors, anything further in the Agriculture Innovation Centre Partnership Committee report. Councillor Irvine, might just, thank you. Councillor Irvine.
In the maintenance schedule, at item number 1,
What page, sorry, 47.
yes,
Thank you.
there's a reference here to upgrade the septic system. And the reason for the upgrade appears to be that the original system was placed in the wrong location. This building that this system is attached to was constructed throughout the course of 2018. And there's an item here, an estimate of 12,000 plus the G to repair this. I don't know whether what options council's got, but I don't know whether the ratepayers would be overly happy to hear that we've got a bill for 12 grand plus G to replace a septic system that was basically just put in the wrong spot. So, could I request that some further information be provided to council as to the circumstances surrounding the siting of this septic? Because basically, the issue, as I understand it, it's been put in the drain, so every time it rains, it fills with water. So, we've got a project manager, we've got a lead builder, we've got a licensed plumber. Someone's made a decision to put this septic system in the wrong spot. The ratepayers have paid for it once. These things last 50 years plus. And we've got a bill here for a 4-year-old system for $12,000. So I would like to see, if possible, a future report to come to council in relation to that.
So, Councillor Irvine, in relation to the maintenance update 4.2 on page 46, there's a recommendation there that obviously we're considering. Would you like to move and return it in relation to 4.2 maintenance updates?
Yes, I'm happy with the rest of the maintenance items that I looked at. I attended this meeting as an observer.
Yep.
So if I could just ask item 1 on the maintenance schedule. If the circumstances surrounding the siting of it could be investigated and if there's any way to reduce the cost of the ratepayers or to determine, to determine the cause of why it was sited in what appears to be the wrong position.
Right, so you're recommending that council note the report in relation to 4.2 maintenance update and further that a future report be furnished to council in relation to
Item 1.
yes, item 1 on the maintenance schedule, entitled septic system for Triple A shed. Further in relation to the initial works as to the reasoning why, I'm just trying to get right wording, Councillor Irvine. Mr. General Manager, do you have any assistance in relation
Regarding
to?
the location.
Yeah, thank you. What she said. Okay, just get that up here. So you're happy with that, Councillor Irvine? Thank you. Is there a second for the motion? And this is just relating to 4.2 maintenance updates. Is there a second for the motion? Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Sorry, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just to clear, Councillor Irvine, what come out of that? I mean, the decision's been made. Just don't understand what's going to be achieved by this course.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I go to Councillor Irvine.
Just in response, I think it's important for the residents and ratepayers to have faith in the council and the expenditure of the funds. Now, it's not apparent how this system came to be placed where it was, but when you consider that we've got an experienced project manager, experienced builder and a licensed plumber who've been responsible for the installation of this infrastructure. And it's been in place for 4 years, and it's been a problem since installation when period of heavy rain arrives. I think it's very important that we ascertain where the breakdown in our systems may have occurred, and that there is some way that future, well, I won't go as far as saying waste at this point until I get the report as to the circumstances, but it does appear that there's been something go wrong in the system to have a piece of infrastructure that should last 50 years put in the wrong spot, and now the ratepayers have been having to foot a bill for $12,000 plus GST. That's my opinion on it.
Thanks, councillor Irvine. Councillor, can you please just have another look, see councillor McLaren at the motion that's before you, and just please make sure that it's capturing what you're wishing to. I'm just not sure whether it has captured what you're articulating. Councillor Irvine, councillor McLaren.
The decision of location.
Sorry, councillor McLaren.
It's more the planning of it. Whether the plans were put in place for the plans being kept.
And I thought it was also about costs as well, to see if the costs can also be,
Yeah, maybe it was.
because, yeah, we've got to obviously deal with the issue as well. Councillor Irvine?
I think it's fundamentally deals with responsibility, and it's responsible for the decision deciding on. And if, for example, council's project manager insisted that this item bill or recommended this item bill, I suppose council picked up the tab of that, and we look at our internal processes. However, you know, we've got an experienced builder and a licensed plumber involved here, and there's got to be some responsibility for the location of some infrastructure that appears to be fundamentally flawed and has been since its installation. So, yeah, as I certainly don't want to lay any blame or accusation on anyone involved in this project, but I really do think the ratepayers and the residents deserve some sort of a realistic explanation in relation to this.
Thank you. So as long as councillor Irvine and councillor McLaren, you're happy with the motion that's before you. Okay. Happy?
I really do think this the
Sorry.
Sorry, I've been waiting patiently.
Sorry, councillor Bushell. Councillor Irvine.
I would say regarding responsibility for citing of the original system.
Okay. So councillor McLaren, are you happy to continue the second map? Okay, thank you. Now, further discussion, councillor Irvine, you can turn on. Thank you. Further discussion, thank you, councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The justification for the investigation doesn't weigh up in my mind, right? The cost of our staff looking into this outweighs the whole process. I just feel like it's a bit of an attack, to be completely honest. And yeah, I don't see how we're going to benefit out of it. It does say the issue is water during and after heavy rain. We have had lots of rain. We're in our third La Nina proposed. So, you know, I think anyone with the right experience would not be able to gauge as to what could occur from these events that we're seeing. And, you know, someone in a position for 20 years probably has not experienced this. So, you know, even in a professional builder or a plumber, I just think it's an attack.
Thank you very much, councillor Bushell. I'm going to put the motion to you. So we have a motion from Councillor Irvine and Councillor McLaren in relation to 4.2 maintenance update in the Agricultural Basin Centre Partnership Committee meeting. Note the report and further future report will be furnished to council in relation to item 1, the maintenance schedule septic system on the AAA shed regarding responsibility for siting of the septic system. I'm going to put the motion. All those of that opinion, please raise your hands. Or to the contrary. I declare that motion defeated. Now, councillors, the remainder of the report, recommendations, including that report, is someone prepared to move that as an alternative? Councillor McLaren.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask if that would come out of the maintenance fund.
I understand that that's the case, Councillor McLaren, that's right, there's no director. Yeah, thank you. Someone had the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, is moving that the Warwick Agricultural Basin Centre Partnership Committee report recommendations be approved. Is there a second to the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Further discussion? No further discussion. Put the motion to you. All those in that opinion, please say aye. No. Declare that motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor, let's go to page 60, the Assets and Operations Committee report. I was the acting chairman for the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, who was an apology for that meeting. And someone prepared to move that the report be received, please. Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Councillor. Report be received. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Probably no. The motion carried. Thank you. Council's report and recommendations are there for your consideration. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just sort of been reflecting on item 4.4 and the consistency of that motion with motion 4.2. 4.2 is a referral to further matters of the street policy is reviewed, and I would like to move that the site be referred to consistent with policy as well. Only in that the whole street may need to be analysed at the same time, and each tree may require consistent treatment in that street.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLaren. I appreciate the fact that you did bring the other day to say that you've reflected on this, and I think it's, well, I think it's a good thing that Council sort of just on reflection, but perhaps would like to reconsider. So, Councillor McLaren, are you wishing to move anything at this time? You're just making your comments from the moment.
I'll just make my point.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I'll go to Councillor Good.
This tree, I see it to be a bit different to the other tree, in that we previously did tell the residents that we were going to do what we propose to now. The road is lifted quite considerably, and it is a trip hazard. The motion that we moved at this meeting, from my point of view, is it did two things. Well, probably did more than two things, but it did what we told the resident we were going to do, but it also removed that trip hazard. But also, I think by putting a blister or something around it, allowed us to see how that would work in this situation, because as Councillor Karen said, there's many other trees in this situation. If it works satisfactorily, it may be an alternative to removing the trees. So that's why I thought we would go this way.
Thanks very much, Councillor Good. Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I've got a question to the Engineering Works Manager. Along the lines of, can you please give us your opinion on the effectiveness of root barrier long term?
Thanks, Councillor Irvine. The Engineering Works Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in response to Councillor Irvine's question, root barrier itself is somewhat a would immediately fix in terms of repair, but long term, roofs will go where roofs want to go. And roof barrier is only a certain depth, so roof barrier starts at about 600 millimeters and you can get it down to about 1.2 meters. But in terms of that roof barrier, there's still space below the roof barrier where roots can come back under and surface again. So it's not a be all and end all type of treatment, but hopefully it helps to alleviate some of surface roof problems that we see.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councillor Owen.
Just one further question. Have you got, back to the engineering works manager, have you got an estimate of the timeframe the roof barrier may be effective? Has it got a usable lifespan or is it degrading the ground?
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Owen. The manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of that question, I'm not sure in terms of the product, to be completely honest. It's a type of material that shouldn't degrade over time, but in terms of life, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Councillors, you have the Assets and Operations Committee report with recommendations. Is someone prepared to move that we adopt the report and recommendations within the term? Councillor Joe?
Query for,
Oh, yes, Councillor Joe.
it's a little statement really, but the item on the verified village series of options, the motion was on page 6. Happy with that. I'm working with the assets committee to have a meeting in early November. But I did a discussion last meeting, communicating about options, and I did a tour of very hard this morning. There was about 90 residences are actually on quarter-acre blocks, so they're very limited in what they can do with systems. Probably another 30 odd on maybe double blocks, got the option to go a bit further. Plus you've got 10 or a dozen shops who would only be on probably maybe 100 metre strip blocks. So there's a lot of limitations there that we'll get. It's just information for me on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Joe. Councillors, the report recommendations for the Assets and Operations Committee there for your consideration. Someone prepared to move. Councillor Owen.
Just in comment with the plane tree, some of the previous discussion. Got some reservations, but I think we really are giving ourselves ongoing maintenance costs that may not be necessary. I appreciate the aesthetic that those trees will create and provide. However, I think the ongoing risk to damage to our own infrastructure and residents' properties is real and significant. And I think that can be demonstrated when you consider that the tree in question is a very immature example of those stat species. And it's already going to incur a cost of in excess of probably ballpark estimate of over $5,000. When you drive along Naboo Street, you will notice that there's been a number of curb and gutter renewals that coincide with the location, a large number of these trees, so they have already incurred significant cost. And I'm not comfortable going forward allowing a species that may not be appropriate in that location or may be very costly to maintain in that location. I'd like to hear any other thoughts if there's any views of that similar to that.
Thank you. Councillor, what about those that don't agree? Happy to hear those too.
Absolutely.
I'm just waiting to check. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I understand what Councillor Irvine's saying, but when you go, particularly Wagga, we've got some plane trees, huge plane trees there that I wouldn't know how old they are, but yeah, and certainly you can see a place that have footpaths and things like that. But if they were causing that big a trouble to the residents, I think they'd be gone. But So how do they, I don't know. How they handle their problems over there, or just don't.
Thank you. I'll go to the engineering assets manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Pretty sure I said in the committee that we do need to build a in space, but yeah, I guess what I'd say is that I think it's probably a slippery slope. To sort of, only pine trees, like there are a number of species that exist in our streets that are going to cause as bad, if not worse, issues. And we've seen that, and the scale of it is, I think we've got 300 odd pine trees, I think we've got 300 odd clarinet trees. We've got a number of poplar species that are quite invasive. And in terms of how they control in the city, I've got a funny feeling they do some root pruning, but it's very expensive. And so I think it's an argument that needs to be had. I think it's a very subjective issue, and I think we'll have this argument in the future.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren.
Do we know how much thinking are currently spend on this tree issue? Because 300 plant trees at $5,000 each tree is $1.5 million. That's $3 million for both those species. And given our budget constraints, it's not really a luxury to have to afford to be spending X amount of years. Maintainers will be very careful after it.
Thank you. Mr. Perrin, the engineering assets manager.
Yeah, this I've got there, I can't tell you, but I'd say that for the majority of our curve are replacement, which is in relation to damage to the trees. And probably down for everyone's part is that the cost of removal might be cheap compared to the cost of the lifetime cost of another tree. But it depends on the value of the land. I can assure you that there are many places that place the managing part of it very highly. And I think that it's not only an answer at this point, but I definitely agree that we need to look at what we're doing moving forward. And I'm probably not that keen to do too much until we have some more robust discussion and answers as to what the long-term solution is. But a tree here, a tree there, I'm not going to lose sleep over either.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine.
Just to add a little bit more, something on that. How many complaints relative do you receive from the jacarandas in Victoria Street, and how many structural issues do they create as opposed to the pine trees on the caravan?
The question about notice, the assets engineer.
Yeah, to be honest, we've had a couple of complaints about the parking area because they're on the road in Victoria Street. They definitely are less. Like if you look at where they are planted on the northern side of the road, and they're very close to the curb, they haven't done a lot of damage compared to some of the others. I'm not sure how old the jacarandas are, but they may be a slow growing species. I know there's a few replacements that are twigs at the moment, but they've been there for a few years. I think that's part of it is like, some of the species that have been chosen because they're resilient and they grow pretty quick. But like I said, it's issues. I'm not, I don't think we get to the point where we plant the whole town out of species. We want as much diversity as we can, but there are certain species that they want to remove in time. But like in terms of rule out planting moving forward, but I'm not going to say what they are yet. I'll wait for that.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine, we do need to move on. Councillor Irvine.
I think from what the manager's just told us is that there are certain species that are very low maintenance in terms of dollar cost maintenance, and there are other species that are very expensive to maintain. I love all trees equally, and I think they just create so much energy in a community. But I think if you get the location of each particular species correct, I think that's when it's the absolute ultimate. I don't expect that we're going to get it 100%, but I think there are great improvements to be made. I really would like to see these trees, or this work delayed until we review the street tree policy. I think that would be far more sensible than now.
Thank you. Well, and this is in relation to 4.4, councillor Lewin, you're referring to, yep, to remove page 87. Well, I'm happy to receive a motion in relation to that, because I have no other motion. Councillor Lewin.
Well, I'll move the motion that decision be overturned and that we refer any future works on this matter after the review of the street tree policy.
So, effectively, you want this matter considered at the same time as we review the street tree policy. Thank you. Is there a second for the motion, please? Councillor Judd, thank you. Second for the motion. Is there further discussion on that? Just 4.4 tree removal request on page 87. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please raise your hands. To the contrary, thank you. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Can I have a motion, please, the remainder of the Assets and Operations Committee report and recommendations? Thank you, Councillor McLaren, but do I have to move to be adopted? Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Let's go to page 101, the Economic Development and Visitations Committee report, and Councillor McLaren is the chair.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that the report be received.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren, approve the report is received. Is there a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Secretary, move. Second, all those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. There were no items in the development.
Thank you very much. So therefore, is someone prepared to move the report and recommendations for the Economic Development and Visitations Committee report, please? Thank you. Councillor Bushell. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Not. I'll put the motion to. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we also have a late committee report, the Irrigating Users Committee. We apologise for this delay, and the engineers, the assets engineer is suggesting it's his fault, but actually got a few brownie points wrapped up.
So I was off the day after.
No, another day. Let's go to the chairman of that committee, the Irrigating Users Committee, Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chairman, I'd like to move that the report has been received.
Thank you. Councillor Judd is moving the report is received. Is there a second for the motion? Councillor Oliver. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillor Judd.
Just like to mention the assets management manager is really sweating it out this coming weeks. So the work there is going to get finished. Guarantee Ms. Graham's probably not helping us.
We have an extra week, Councillor Judd, till the opening. Sounding something.
And the other point of this page is item 4.4, the established expansion. The Irrigating user was involved in the feedback to the subdivision design, and they did make some queries about where the estate was up to, and we were able to advise them that because it's still being developed and most in confidence we couldn't say any more. But we were advised that there are significant interest still coming in from possible purchases, and we don't sort of hurry things up. We're going to miss out, and was reported that we already lost one potential resident to another aerodrome. So, but just like council, you realise that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. Councillors, you have the assets and operations, the Irrigating Users Committee reports there, some serious recommendations for you to consider. Someone prepared to move that we adopt those, or is there an alternative motion? Councillor Oliver? So you'll move it. Thank you. You'll move that we adopt the recommendations contained in the Outgoing Users Committee report. Thank you. Is there a second for the motion, please? Councillor Judd, thank you. Move and second. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Probably no. The motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Let's, council, go over the page to page 105. And that is the Mayor's report for the month of August. There's a recommendation on page 108. I beg your pardon, thank you. You are quite right. Before we go to the Mayor's report on 105, I have another page of we have delegates reports, I beg your pardon. So let's have any delegate reports. Any councillor has delegate reports you can pick on. I'll go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, the one I called in, yeah, just in a Saturday committee meeting. Nominations open now for assistant of the year, young assistant of the year, and event of the year. So we really want people to start putting on their thinking caps and think about who in the community might be suitable for these awards. It's as you will know, some people out there, people do a lot of work voluntarily in the community. That's what makes the place as well as it does. So we'd love to see some nominations coming in very soon. Keep it in mind.
Thanks very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The delegates reports. If not, then we go to page 105. 10.1, we had a report for the month of August, and there is a recommendation on page 108 that council notes the report. Councillor Good, move that by second information, please. Councillor Reinhold, move second. Further discussion? Not, I put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. No. Further motion carried. Thank you. Council, there is a late mayor's report, which is formalised what's verbally been shared with you at the last council meeting in August. So it's 10.2 entitled Mayor's Report Recruitment of General Manager to Morshire Council, and it just formalises the process that we outlined to you at the last meeting in relation to council's involvement, etc. So there's a recommendation there that the report's recommendations be formally adopted. Thank you, Councillor Bushell. Councillor Good, moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Further motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Let's go to page 109. Information, please, receiving staff reports. Councillor McLaren. Thank you. To move that way, seconder. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? No. I'll put the motion on those. Please say aye. Contrary, no. Further motion carried. Thank you very much. Council, let's go to page 110, the General Manager's report, 12.1, calendar of events. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if I could just make a note that on the 21st of October, that Parliament meeting route has been added to the calendar of events.
Thanks very much. Councillors, there's a recommendation for you to consider on the bottom of page 110, that being the council matter report with that addition in relation to the swimming pool refurbishment opening, where it says proposed. Well, that is the date. We did try to see if we could get pushed out, and it was just a night we weren't going to be able to do it until well into the first quarter. So I spoke to the Director of Environmental Services, and he was reasonably happy. He wasn't stressing as much as I thought he might. So, is someone prepared to move the recommendation that council makes a report with those amendments? Thank you, councillor Good. Second for the motion, please. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Move. Seconded. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Probably no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. We go to page 111, 12.2, the seals, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council motion to see there was only one seal, and that's the lease of the Sonic Road, which of course is for the car park.
Declaring a non-pecuniary interest as a member of the Georgia Sonic Lodge. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Reinhold. Sorry, the Deputy Mayor. I beg your pardon.
Just reading the recommendation.
Moving the recommendation, that is the council endorse the seal being fixed to the above document. Thank you, councillor Reinhold. You're happy to second that. Thank you. Moved and second. Is there further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. We'll note, councillors, that we have improved our recommendations there in terms of actually wording that endorse the seal being fixed. So we're improving all the time. So thank you. Let's go to page 112, 12.3, delegation. Steve, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is as required by the Act. Delegations have to be reaffirmed within 12 months of an election. You'll see, I won't go into the details, you can see I've explained there the reason for the delegations and under what section of the Act.
Thank you very much. Councillors, you have a recommendation on the bottom page 113. General Manager has you to consider. Or yes, there's one too. Councillor McLaren, have to move the recommendation. Thank you. Second for the motion. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Further discussion. I'll put the motion to. All those in favour, please say aye. Probably no. The motion carried. Thank you very much, council. That's the first page. Now let's go to page 187, 12.4. One organisation, the way forward. Very important report, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this was raised in the workshop recently. What I've done there is give a copy of the documents that are applicable to the decision for moving forward this document, and also recommended the two options that were recommended at that meeting, which was to re-rock standalone and fold Ribjo, and the second option is to re-rock standalone and Ribjo going right hours.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Council, as we did workshop and those well to be involved. And, I do thank you for that genuine discussion. But I think that what you see there before you is an appropriate way forward this council to consider. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation. Reluctant as I am to see the hiatus work there because that can wait. Yeah, I think it's probably some sort of compromising type of a recommendation. So happy to move that one.
Thanks very much, Councillor Oliver. You're moving the recommendation. Councillor Good. Are you seconding?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Good, and you have the floor.
Yeah, I find it interesting that only rural councils have to have a joint organisation, and that city councils can still have a ROC. I suppose my thoughts are that with the election coming up in March, we don't know who is going to win, and if the opposition, current opposition, wins, but we don't know how they're going to do it. So, yeah, I don't think we should hold completely like join JO until we know exactly how they're going to proceed. I don't think we've probably got an indication from there yet, and I'll. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Good. We've had discussions with the Shadow Minister Mr. Warren, and also another senior Senate Minister, Mr. Beach, and certainly Mr. Warren indicated in all sorts of forms as country mayors or even the Blue Rock Board recently, the Blue Rock Executive, I beg your pardon. And he seems to be, as he's formulating his policy positions, his suite of policies for the March election, is suggesting that he'd like to see councils and regions determine what model is suitable for them, whether that is a ROC, whether that is a jail, whether it's an alliance. The other concern, I think, that Mr. Warren realised that the exodus of JOs that I mentioned to before, New England JO, the most recent to go back to their ROC with JO in hiatus, and certainly Namoi is waiting till after the election, and then they will formally say the chairman tells me, Mayor of Gunnedah, that they will also be going back to their ROC as well. And of course, we know what Iran has done, and we know what the Far West have done. So thank you, Councillor Good. Further discussion on the motion will go to Councillor Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. I sort of support Councillor Wood's concern. I tend to think our preferences are probably down the front. I would prefer the other way around, just to cover ourselves till after the election. But I did note was interested reading the minister from the letter from the minister about JOs and how good they are. And for example, on page 215, the council can work with the JOs to provide services on a regional basis, run tenders and manage projects. That's just saying they can do everything the rocks are doing. So sounds very rosy to me, but they have the running costs.
Thanks, Councillor Joe. The other interesting comment from the Minister is on page 213, where it's describing JOs as a public sector organisation. Remarkable. Anyway, I'm trying to be as extreme as I can, councillors. This is your place. But at the end of the day, councillors, if the JO was working, we wouldn't be having these discussions. Well, councillors, is there any further discussion on the motion that we have before you, which is the councillor and councillor Good moved recommendation. It's on your business paper on pages 187, 188. There's no further discussion. You're going to put the motion to all those in opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. So councillors going forward, councillors' decision on that particular issue will be sent back, and then the boards of those organisations having a joint workshop to tease out the responses, and then we'll again come back to councils with a recommendation in relation to one regional organisation. So you will be visiting the space again. Let's go to page 219, 12.5, the disclosure of interest returns of councillors and the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see there, councillors, the disclosure of interest returns provided. Request that you notify council.
Thank you. Councillor Good, you're happy to move the recommendation to page 219 that council notes the disclosure of interest returns. Thank you very much. Is there a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sinclair, moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you very much. And council, just remember, if you think of, because I've brought a couple of extra things, as soon as you think, because obviously we write, what we believe at the time. If things change, please just advise executive assistant when she's well, and we can update those documents. Thank you. Anything of a urgent, late nature, like Mr. Dillon?
It's just that one thing, Mayor, it's in relation to a conference that council has been represented at in previous times. It's the National Local Roads and Transport Congress. It's a bit of an unusual one. We go to the state conference each year. This is the national one run by Australian Local Government Association. And this year, though, it's a bit unusual. They're not all over the place. This year it's in Tasmania. So the reason I brought it back is that early bird applications or registrations close before the next meeting. But if council do wish to send someone to that, I've worked out the cost will be about $2,500 for someone to attend that. And I'll probably take airfares, accommodation, registration into account. As I said, the council's had a history of attending these events. I know, I think Councillor Judd's been in the past, I know ex-councillor Stevens has been in the past, and engineers have been in the past, but I'll leave the council to decide whether they wish to be represented at this, and if they do, who will represent.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I know Councillor Judd, I had discussions with Councillor Judd Lee, he's attended these on and off over many years. Your view, Councillor Judd, I think you were suggesting that it's something that we should perhaps keep in mind if they're in our state, or perhaps the northern part of Victoria and southern Queensland. Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I've attended a number of these over the years. I like them very beneficial. I also go to the state one, which is actually like a one-day one. But this one, the one at Hobart this year is only a week or so after the state conference in New South Wales at Melbourne. And it just makes it very hard to get around all these things. But as the Mayor has said, future ones, they do rotate around the states, and we just like supporting it. You know, we do have a conference in New South Wales or pretty close. I would recommend sort of trying to look at in future years.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. We go to Councillor Bushell,
Is that of interest, Mayor?
the manager.
Yeah, second, third November.
Second or third. Is there a tour of the Cadbury factory included? Thank you. So councillors, are you happy to note that condition, but also keep in mind that we will have this come up every year and the council can determine at that time.
I'll leave it alone.
Thank you. Councillor Judd, you're moving that that council do not send representative to this conference, but review again next year. Thank you. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to the councils tonight, I could do it when we're looking at the information paper, but the details on the policy review framework we're looking at, at the workshop is determined that we review a number of policies, and that's the schedule of policy. So in October, we'll be looking at the code of meeting practice, investment policy, and debt recovery policy. So, and then through to November and December, just for information.
Thank you. Right, councillors, let's go to page 251, engineering service, which does say there that there's nil to report. However, we do have a report from engineering services, albeit late. 13.1, the articulated series service policy that was on public exhibition, and we've received 0 submissions. The assets manager, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I'd add is that the real exhibition is the section that we haven't removed, so I'll subsequently remove that section. It doesn't, will make 0 difference.
Thank you. Councillors, there's a recommendation that you consider that council adopt policy. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair has moved the recommendation. There a seconder, Councillor? Councillor Oliver, thank you. Move. Seconded. Further discussion. Further discussion, we go to Councillor McCray.
I just wondering whether our council number is the 24-hour number for emergencies. In fact, 698011.
Thank you, Councillor McCray, Manager.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you. So just the
Yeah, you select an option. And you actually to the second person as well.
thank you. There's no further discussion, council. We're going to put the motion to in relation to articulated sewage service policy, and that is that we adopt the policy after being a public exhibition. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. And motion carried. Thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent like nature, Mr. Engineering Managers, Monsieur. And the works engineers happy, the assets engineer. Thank you. Council, let's go over to page 252. Environmental Service Department report, 14.1, the draft development contributions plan, and that's in the hands of the acting director, who's running, of course, the acting director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report follows on from a review that was conducted, and there was a recommendation that we include some minor updates to our developer contributions plan. So I've included an attachment that indicates in red the proposed changes that were requested as part of the review that was completed. And as part of that process, we've also proposed some updates in relation to the figure estimates in relation to some of the projects. So there's just some additional items that the Director of Administration and Finance brought to my attention just today, is that just in relation to page 203, which it indicates the area park playground swing set. So there is a figure in there of $5,000. So council has actually already used developer contributions fund to purchase the equipment, but then there's a second stage of the project involving the installation, and so that is proposed to happen in next year when those funds become available. So that item would actually be deleted from the plan because those funds have been spent on purchasing the equipment. And given also that
Just pardon me, Madam Acting Director, so just before we go on, so you're suggesting that be deleted?
yes, we have used that fund, that $5,000 already.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
And just to note, with our recent years of increasing development, previously on page 262, at the time, we were expecting about $2,000 per year in income through this policy, but now it's at a figure of $90,000 a year. So we have now got some significant balance of funds there, which is $276,000 in funds that we will now be able to use to deliver the projects as they are nominated in this policy, as the additional supporting funds become available to complement the funds collected under this plan. And just for noting as well, a new project proposing to add in the Bradley Park upgrade that's shown on page 263. So again, this is in conjunction with the current work that we are undertaking in relation to design of that park, and we are proposing that a contribution from the community through the collection of these funds would be identified as a co-contribution that council could make to seek the majority funding for the delivery of the upgrade of that park.
Thank you very much. Councillors, you've heard from the acting director in relation to the draft development contribution plan report. There is a series of recommendations there for you to consider on page 252. Also, keeping in mind that deletion of the Aeropark program screen set item, page 263. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have discussed around this table over the short period of time being a 7.11 contribution. Is this the appropriate time to discuss that? And do we insert that into this policy while it's a draft policy?
Thank you, Councillor Good. The acting director.
So the way that is set up is that you can only have one policy that applies to a section of land at a time. So predominantly rural councils use this 7.12 plan, which is a levy. It's a fixed rate, which is set out in the plan depending on the scale of the development. So it's a large scale development, paying 1%. Between 100 and 200,000 is 0.5%, and below $100,000 value, there's no charge. So a 7.11 that is a much more detailed plan where it's most often used for urban growth areas where they need their own specific infrastructure in their particular area of their town or their suburb, rather than these projects are identified for overall benefit for the entire shire. And it's often used by rural councils because we don't have the same level of growth. There are some councils that use a 7.11 plan for particular types of development, perhaps a quarry, and they collect fees for particular road upgrades just in association with that particular development. And you can only apply that to the exclusion of collecting other funds. So you can only collect one or the other. And many rural councils just choose to use this levy approach because it is an easier method rather than having the other approach, which requires a lot more detailed calculation of the exact costing of all types of infrastructure directly attributed to that growth of that particular suburb or area of the town. So that's why you can't have both, it's one or the other.
Thank you very much. Further comment, Councillor Wood.
My reading of it was you can only have one particular contribution per development. But I would have thought, based on the subdivision is one sort of development, and then building a house, even though it's on the same block of land, is a different development. That's why you need separate development applications. Is that not the case?
Thank you, Councillor Wood. The acting director.
So it's true, yeah. So subdivision is one kind of development, and then building a house is another kind of development. So you can apply the contribution. So the levy approach is relevant in those circumstances, or both circumstances, but the distinction of using a 7.11 approach is the way that the contributions plan itself is written, rather than where it applies. So where you use a 7.11 plan, you don't have a percentage rate. So you just calculate the exact cost of this infrastructure that's being needed, and then the development that occurs in response to that development, where that applies, they pay that amount. So they could potentially pay a lot more if it was deemed that we needed to build bridges and other infrastructure that was directly related to the demand generated by that particular development. So but with this approach, it's just the percentage, so it's not dependent on how much the value of the infrastructure is that's generated, because you're not actually calculating to minute detail every single bit of infrastructure that's needed. It's considered overall benefit to the town, and that's why the projects are quite broad in where they are located. But I'm happy to sort of have further discussions with you afterwards, quite a detailed process.
Yeah, I understand that when you do have a subdivision, it's a certain amount per block, to a maximum as specified by the minister. And in relation to what you said about certain infrastructure needed because of the development, we have had many people say that we need more parkland in these areas where there's been development. So I believe that we do need a 7.11 contribution plan so that we can get that parkland and those open areas that the community has said to us that they need. And so I think now is the appropriate time, because of we're doing our plan now.
Well, thank you, councillor Good, but what I'd say in response to that is, there's a series of recommendations that the council are going to consider. My view is that if there are councils that feel strongly about that, they may actually put in a submission that can be part of that process of public submissions, and even taking up the opportunity to sit with the town planner to be able to tease that out further, because obviously there's passion there. But if we did adopt the recommendations before us, we can all have a say as citizens, as councillors. So thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor McLaren, you're happy? Thank you. There's a recommendation if the council to consider on page 252.
Yes, I'll move.
Councillor Good, you're happy to move that way. Second, thank you, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. The further discussion. Further discussion on the motion, Councillor Erdogan.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. I do agree with Councillor Good's comments. The scale of the subdivisions that have been moved to Temora, one's in progress and one's in development, are much more akin to the metro type of developments that 711 would apply to. The 712 is more for infill development and less cost and more spread type of development into areas that are pre-established and stuff like that. So I really do support Councillor Good's ideas in relation to this, and I will be putting a motion, a recommendation into a comment in relation to the plan.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Councillor Erdogan. Well, there's no further discussion. I'm going to put the motion to you. All those in that, please say aye. Probably no. Declare the motion carried. Again, now that that's been passed, yes, the council is passionate, any citizen, please put in a submission. Thank you. Now, we have a urgent late report that you'll note from the Environmental Services Department, important one, 14.2, Stronger Country Communities. The assets engineer is declaring a non-pecuniary interest as a commitment of the regulated fiscal club. We go to the acting. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, you're not walking out, are you? No. We have the acting director of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report was late due to the online survey only closing on Friday last week, and that gave us the opportunity, following the councillors' workshop, for us to conduct an online and page-based community survey. There was a very high response rate of 428 people completed the survey, which was excellent. So by way of a recap, so there were projects that council identified in order that they would like put forward for funding under this program. So there's some information about the percentage of votes for various projects. And then the survey also included some opportunities for to nominate other projects that they considered worthy and wanted to bring to council's attention. So I provided a summary of those projects. So there was quite a number there. And there's information about some projects that have already been funded, some projects that we considered to be ineligible under this fund. And then there's a recommendation there for council to consider the report and advise if they wish to alter the identified list in order of priority or nominate alternate projects or funds.
Thank you. Councillors, you see the report there. It's a shame we don't get this many responses to the community strategic plan, but nonetheless, I'm sure the document will be, feedback will be captured going forward. We go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the director, do you envisage that we will get enough funds to cover all those projects, the 6 projects that we've listed?
Thank you, Councillor Good.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do believe we'll have enough funding to apply for all 6 of those projects.
Within that, just under 900,000, you can allocate.
Yes, within that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, councillors, happy to receive a motion, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, it's, which way the way around it, nowadays,
Just, I don't think it's going to make a lot of difference if the funding's going to be there, so, I mean, Harper Park, I guess, it's more about, where the population is and the votes they get, so, I'm quite happy to leave it all the
Thank you.
things.
Thank you. So, the Deputy Mayor has moved and seconded Councillor Reinhold that our nominated projects under round 5 of the New South Wales Government Stronger Country Communities Fund are Harper Park for its accessibility upgrades, Nixon Park Athletics Area upgrade, Nixon Park Eastern Amenities Building upgrade, Tamora Parks upgrades listed there, which include Lakes Callaghan Park, Federal Park, Hospital, Tamora West Park, to include new seating, picnic settings, security upgrades, fencing, playground equipment, Underwater Centre, to the Visitor Information Centre upgrades, visitor amenity and accessibility improvements, and finally, for Recreation Centre upgrade, visitor seating, barbecue areas. That's all right, Cathy, to improve facilities for spectators. Is there further discussion? Councillor Irvine.
It's really good to see such a strong response from the community, and all of these additional suggestions are fantastic, and I think it really will be a great tool for us in the future. A lot of these projects are really on the ball, and hopefully we can access more grant funding and action some of these as well.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour, further discussion, Councillor Judd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll support the motion, but just support the comment by Councillor Irvine. Yes, we've got quite a good response, but the original ones, motion, projects we had have gone through the system of the community strategic plan, delivery plan, and the operational plan. And I think we've got to encourage all the new ones to go through the same system. Just can't put up an idea and say council's going to do it. They've got to do their homework as well. So we've got to really educate the people to, if you want a project, do the homework and back up to your ideas.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. You're 100% spot on. We love passion and this is obviously what we see here before us, but there is a process, and you're right, we must continue to educate and inform our community. There is a process, and sometimes it might take a while, and other times it may not. So, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, if there is further discussion on the motion, I'll go to Councillor Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, this is the late report, I'm sort of sitting through it, but I find it quite funny to read the mobile canola viewing platform based on shipping containers to be moved around canola trail areas that users can better take photos without jumping the fence. The other day when I was driving to G&E, a lady slammed on the brakes right in front of me, just takes the best photo that she got of canola and just didn't even get off the pole line. So this canola trail is somewhat of a distraction for people. So I really think for us to have a shipping container that's movable.
Well, thank you, Councillor Bush. Wow. Anyway, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, councillors, I'm going to put the motion to you. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. I would assume that the general manager is also going to write a letter, I'm sure. Thanks to the member for Cootamundra, just to actually say thank you again for the 5 rounds of strong country community. It's just it's unreal, and the world's going to run dry sooner or later, but we're just so grateful for it as a Shire community. Thank you very much. Nothing further of urgent nature from the Environmental Services Department. Thank you very much. Thank you for stepping up again. Let's now, councillors, go to the Administration and Finance. Oh, yes, thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Manager. During your temporary absence, Council have resolved to approve the 6 selected projects at the workshops and further commending the community for their thought-provoking suggestions. Now, we go to the Department of Administration and Finance on page 266, 15.1, office closure. The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report has written, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Bushell.
I'd like to make a recommendation as a pre-staffer.
Right, thank you, Councillor Bushell. You're moving the recommendation, page 266, that Council approves the closure of the office Christmas New Year period and the library on Christmas Eve. Thank you. Is there a second, Councillor Oliver? Thank you. Moved and seconded. And I think the Director makes a very good point, Councillor. Now, all of you have mentioned to me and to others that we're so blessed to have dedicated staff, indoor staff, and of course the library, and the extra work that they do, which is unpaid, and this means a great deal to them. Thank you. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the Director, how is that going to be allocated? Will it be taken out of their holidays, or will it just be leave with it, leave?
Thank you, Councillor Good. The Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so it's not taken out of staff leave, it's just, yeah, it's just 3 days.
And thanks for their overtime. Yeah, the General Manager.
Yeah, probably just explain that indoor staff don't get paid overtime. They do that, and this is the, I suppose, a contribution towards that. But yeah, whereas most staff get paid overtime.
Thank you. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thanks very much, councillors. Councillors, we do have a emergent late report from the Director of Administration and Finance, 15.2 financial statements. The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the financial statements are about to be
hoping to be authorised for issue, so our auditors will be here next week. You'll note at the moment we're showing a $1.1 million surplus, which is largely different from our budgeted position. I'd just like to say, while that sounds fabulous, it's actually not. We received 5 quarters of our FAGS grant in 2022. So that 5th quarter of the FAGS grant was around about $1 million. So if you take that out, we're back to about where we almost where we thought. There are a couple of things where we went better than budget, but 2023 is going to be really messy. Anyway, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. Councillors, you have the report there, and yes, we're grateful for the federal government's financial assistance grants. However, it's just really does complicate things very much so when it's advanced payments. However, it is what it is. Just have to have a good memory of what we just said this time next year when we read. Councillor Good.
I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Good, moving a recommendation that the council delegates the general manager to authorise the financial statements for issue upon receipt of the audit report. Second for motion, Councillor Bushell. Thank you. Move. Second, is there further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you, Mayor. The motion carried. Thanks very much. Let's go to page 2. Well, nothing of a urgent late nature, Madam Director. Thank you. Let's go to page 267, correspondence 16.1, the Royal Town Hall with General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a bit of an unusual one, councillors. It's an application from New South Wales Health at the moment, if you like, Health District. They're undertaking a team workshop for the mental health staff. And they've been funded for it, but they haven't been funded for a venue. So they're asking if council will consider either waiving the fees on the town hall, a back the fees on the town hall, or at least a contribution towards those fees.
I better declare an interest as chairman of the Temora Local Advisory Council, which is under local health. So I'll just refer to the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Unless the Deputy Mayor like to also consider the Manic Minds Festival, which is also on the moment. Thank you.
Okay, councillors. Okay, councillors, if the chairman has outlined the request. The health issue doing their own funding and so forth, so I don't know what is being on the local government itself, but anyway, some comments. Councillor Wood.
I think it's typical cost shifting itself, but to the general manager, they reading this, they've got $200 for the venue. Is that correct? There's apparently New South Wales Health only allocate $200 per team building event. So I presume that they've got $200 for this event.
No, the letter that I received doesn't say that. I suspect it's $200 for the full event.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wood.
I am opposed to cost shifting, but I think it's potentially it would be a good event. And so I move that we proceed to their request.
Okay, councillors, Councillor Wood is the request, and then I'll second it. Councillor McLaren is second motion. Councillor Bush will be able.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to know, didn't we discuss in the previous month about a town hall donations policy? Only been introduced, town hall, yes?
The town hall donations policy allows for up to half to be donated back unless there's a council resolution. Council always got that one.
Councillor,
I see, Murrumbidgee Local Health have got an event, Dramatic Minds Festival, which is a youth, event. And they're requesting assistance for that. And this is from the same organisation, is there? There's no date allocated in the first request. Is there something in the, what I'm getting at, I suppose, is there any slight possibility that they could combine?
I think, Councillor, they're two very different things. One is they call it a team building exercise, but it's an opportunity to get full mental health team together to participate in a but the other one, the Dramatic Minds is something that they do run on an annual basis, and it's been something that council supported for some time. It's actually a youth event that get young people involved in it. It's another mental health initiative, but it's a really pointing out some real positives in the mental health space. So I see them as different. They certainly couldn't happen on the same episode.
further comments from Councillor?
Thanks, Acting Chairman, I think the vote is Councillor Bill before I'm not happy with that supporting state government department, personally, having workshops there. Fully support the Dramatic Minds, but I think they should support their own things with their own workshops.
Well, we've got a motion that seeks the request is amendment or not, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I've in the region of Councillor Carroll as well. They can have these team building events in other places. I don't know how many are going to attend, but I'm agreed with Councillor.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm in the breaks as well. Maybe there's a better facility that might be a less cost for them to utilise, or there's lots of clubs and other areas that they could go.
So everyone's happy. I'll get you feeling the current motions. I'll put the motion. I suppose it's up there, beside the. Okay, no further discussion. I'll put the motion, all in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion lost. So we move on to the. Go to 16.6, Dramatic Minds Festival.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This event, council is something we have sponsored for some time, and assisted. It's been a very well received program, and they have requested that council support it as a
Councillors.
Yeah, just for some background to the other councillors, I've been involved in this in the past, and it brings together groups from all of the schools in the area, and they come together in the town hall, and they put on, well, drama. And it's a really, really, a good day. I've been involved in it with video production and stuff in the past, and it's great fun. It's really good for the kids. And there's some really good messages that come out of it. I support this application.
You like to do that way?
Yes, I'll do that way if I may.
That's what they're on doing, the request. Yes, one, that's one, second. Further comments? No further comments, I'll put the motion, those in favour? Against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Now, while you're at the, item 16.1, motion to the request was, denied, and then item, 16.6, the Radiant Minds Festival, motion was to, proceed to request.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Now, let's go to page 268, 16.2, the Temora Motorcycle Racing Club. Before I call on General Manager, just to advise council, we've had an error on our part, and we've expressed sincere apology. We did have a submission for the public forum from Mrs. Jill Wild-Smith, that unfortunately was misplaced. And so I've extended our sincere apologies for that. She was very gracious and understanding, I have to say, but she did ask if we could pass on to all councillors her address, which we put around as well. Would councillors like that read? Would you like that read to further assist, or you're happy to do better? Okay, thank you. But yeah, sincere apologies to Mrs. Watson. Thank you very much for the grace in which she accepted and understood. Thank you, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see there, the Woodlands, or the Temora Motorcycle Racing Club out of Woodlands is holding the Australian Classic and Post-Classic track finals, which is a fairly big event for really like Temora. We're an organisation that really don't ask a lot of us, and we are on our land in terms of Woodland circuit. But they've requested the use of the shower block because of problems finding accommodation for people in town. The cost of that, if it goes ahead, is about $600, $605. So, yeah, so the council's decision.
Thanks very much, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. These people mind on the chat and ask for anything in the past at all. And as the General Manager has said, it's going to be quite a significant contribution to our economy over that time. And I think I'm happy to grant them what they're up.
Thank you. So Councillor, you're moving that council acceded to the request that the provision of the Forcenet shower block at the cost of $330, delivery setup costs, and of course the deposit I get back. If it's etc. So you're moving that way. Second, Councillor Good. No, second, Councillor Irvine. Thank you. Move to second discussion Councillor Brooke.
Can I just clarify that motion? Are you saying that we donate back the cost of the share, the rental and the delivery, but not the deposit? Do they need to pay a deposit?
That's just automatic, isn't it, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, thanks, councillor Brooke. Moved and seconded, further discussion, councillor Bushnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment. I don't know whether the motorcycle club can, fully engaged by the campers with this letter that they said. We really need to provide them with bins because there's going to be influx of waste with them staying over. So I'd like to include,
The provision
waste, provision of bins, and I know that's cost, I've seen that before in an event. Also, I'd also like to include that because I think they're sort of given that much thought.
So a suitable quantity of things. Well, so mover and seconder, are you happy to include that in your motion, councillor Oliver?
Yeah, but not really, no, I think we give them a fee anyway, I think they've got to wear some of the cost.
So you're happy to stick? Thank you. Councillor Irvine is the second of the motion.
Oh,
You're happy with that? Okay, thanks, councillor Irvine. So now, councillor Bushnell, would you like to move an amendment?
Can I comment or not?
Yes, you may.
We do it for the show, when it comes around, when they have the use of devices around, we provide waste management for that as well. So, the mobile say should be, and I like it. I just, yeah, as I said, I just don't think they foresee the issue that waste can generate outside.
Thank you. So you're not wanting to move
I'm not gonna win, I don't think.
thanks, councillor Bush, for raising the point. I go to the deputy mayor, councillor.
Well, this is from Councillor Bushnell's. Probably, I think it's a fair comment. But this is his opinion. There's no way.
That's right.
I don't know if I've got the support.
One way to find out. Councillor Bush,
Okay, I'd like to move an amendment that includes waste management.
as well as acceding to the request of the four-stand shower block delivery setup, but also
Yes.
the provision of suitable number of
Waste management.
waste management. Yeah. Suitable waste management. So councillor Bushell has moved that amendment. Is there a second? Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved. Seconded. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Goes to councillor Clare.
We have a budget estimate for that will be.
Yes, councillor Clare, that's a good question. Do we have an approximate? $8 each, September, yeah. Thanks, Aaron. I go to councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at we've already spent $6,174 in the station budget, leaving us $8,825 after we said with their request, the initial request. We get to spend $8,200, it's a couple of months coming up. So I don't know, I think we just got to draw a line. So I know it's only $80, but that's not a lot of money for them, is it? So.
Thanks very much, councillor Oliver. Well, there's no further discussion. I'll put the amendment first, which is that we accede to the request with the four-stand shower block delivery setup cost being donated back, and further that provision of present waste management extended to them. So I'll put the amendment first. All those in that opinion, please raise your hands. Contrary, no. Raised. Thank you. Declare the amendment lost. I'll put the motion. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Bushy.
I'm a clean up story day volunteer, so just be mindful that area there's lots of rubbish. I think you got every year.
Yeah, no, we know we're very grateful. Councillors, let's go over the page, 270, 16.3, support Christian leaders, the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the More Christian leaders are asking for some assistance in providing the carols by candlelight there this year on the 10th of December in Blossom Park. As you can see, the cost there will be $550 for if it's wet weather, obviously 120 and not 400. So worst case scenario, $550.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. And I think councils, everybody in our Shire community that's able to attend, but they really enjoy the Christmas carols and all people from all walks of life in our community, perhaps even visitors that come and enjoy Christmas carols. I can't believe we're talking about Christmas already, but we are. So we've assisted them here, but again, this is a matter for council. Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, I'll move to the request, but further, I just want to make a comment, and I think council Long was on the ball in that we're only 3 months into the financial year. We've really burnt through half of our donations budget, so I think we better enjoy it till Christmas time, and it'll probably be pretty sad till second half of the year.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine, and yes, it is appropriate that we're reminded of that, and I think the council were trying to show restraint, of course, at the time in pruning back budgets, but of course that was also the time when there were very, very few community events happening across the Shire as well. So, Councillor Irvine has moved that we accede to the request to More Christian Leaders for Christmas Carols 2022. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. So you okay now, Pastor Morris? Thank you. So, Councillor Wood. The next one. Yep. We go to page 272, 16.4. The tomorrow 135th annual show. General Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Continuing on the theme of assistance, the Show Society have requested some assistance from council. As you can see there, the amount for that is $1,160. This is something that we have supported year in, year out. The good news from those looking at the donations budget is this doesn't come out of the donations budget. There's actually an allocation in our budget for the Tomorrow Show. This is only part of it. We also do other work at the showground. We give we pick up the rubbish. We also slash the ground prior to the event, although that's highly unlikely it's going to happen this year. So it's but there is a budget of $4,400, and so it's highly unlikely that will be spent this year.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question to the General Manager.
Yes.
Part of the request here is for the toilet blocks. I know we've had some money allocated for the Shire, for the showground recently. Has there been any provision for toilet blocks in that grant funding or the provision?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Good. General Manager.
There are quite a number of toilet blocks up there. I would think that the toilet blocks they're after is for inside the arena, so that people don't have to come, the ring with horses or whatever, to come out to get to toilet blocks. It's a big area, and but there are a number of boxes. One over where the dog show is. There's another one in the old basketball arena. There's several in the main area where the trolling pub is, and so there are toilet blocks there, and I think there's also another one down with the horses, so down where the horse stables are. So there's quite a few there. I think this is for so people that are in the ring, they obviously can't take their horse up to go to the hood, so they allow us to do that within the arena.
Thank you. So it was noted, of course, that there was budget allocation So therefore, that money actually in effect wouldn't come off the donations budget.
No, that's not.
Thank you. The deputy, no, who's got it on? Councillor McLaren.
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that we
No
know.
for the report. That's perfectly, no for the report. Or accede to the request, accede to the request, noting that it doesn't come out of the donation budget, but it's already on a separate line item for assistance with the show.
Okay, no problem.
No, no, no.
Regrets.
Yeah, that's
I thought
fine.
it was done deal.
Thank you. And the deputy mayor, second that. Thank you. We just need to amend that report as far as the donations, etc. Yeah. So, moving to second, is there further discussion? I just think it's fantastic, councillors and staff members of the gallery, that we have the oldest organisation, the next is the Temora Masonic Lodge in Temora Shire. The 135th annual show. It's remarkable, and I just normally commend those of us that have been involved before, even in the early days from the start, but also to those terrific souls that are volunteering either on the committee or as stewards or stewardesses. It's terrific, and it's just cannot wait for a community to come together. I've been asked to open the show this year, and it's, I have to tell you, I'm looking forward to it, even though it is on grand final day for the AFL, but I am prepared to sacrifice for us all to be together for a special day. So thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favor, please. Sorry, councillor Owen, I beg your pardon.
It was only just a comment on the extreme increases in insurances that the showman deal are facing with their. Right, it would be anticipated at this early stage that side of that aspect of the show will be down significantly based on events in the area, and it's unfortunate. I don't know what the reasoning behind it is, but it's absolutely decimating that industry, and pretty much if you can't afford the insurance to go and make your money, well, eventually you can't afford the business. It's just going to send them out of business at this point in time.
Thanks, councillor Owen, you're quite right. We have something will improve for everybody's sake. Further discussion on the motion, councillor Bush.
Yeah, just go to what councillor everyone said, I've heard around from families, and it must have gone to other shows, and yeah, it's $15 an hour, so it's really daunting as a mother. With young kids, so sort of saying, yeah, go on, judge.
Thank you, councillor Bush. If there's no further discussion, I will put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. Let's go to page 274, 16.5, Lakes and Terry Redding, the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a bit of an unusual one to us coming council. We don't have a policy on the use of lakes and Tenerife for wedding receptions. We have had weddings at Lakes and Tenerife, but not the receptions. We've had the formal part of the wedding. But the other thing I guess you could argue is that there have been a number of birthdays and that type of thing held out there, but there's been an informal or a non-organised type event. This is a bit different. They are proposing to potentially put a night field gazebo up and have 50 to 60 people there. So for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Yes, it is a unique request, and I go now to Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only concern with this is glass. The champagne glasses, subbies and all sorts of things. I don't know whether they're aware of the policy out there. It's not glass, but that's my only concern with this.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I go to Councillor Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'd like to sort of see like a bond the issue, if they're going to do a marquee, I hate to see the marquee set up sort of fire post into our ordering system or the like, and so yeah, I'd like to see sort of a bond to that sort of that issue, and just wondering whether the Lakes and Tenerife can have been advised of the day.
Thank you, councillor Busher, the general manager.
No, they haven't met it yet, and that will be one of the conditions they refer to the Blacks and Foundation.
Thank you. We go now to councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have an idea of where they would like to set up?
Thank you, councillor Good, the general manager.
No, all we have at the moment is what's in front of us.
Thank you, councillor Good.
My concern is that it's peak time for the lake, 1st of December. Effectively, from thinking about it, really the most appropriate place would be the main area to the east of the amenities building. And by agreeing to this request, we would be effectively closing the lake to everyone else other than the people at this wedding, which I don't think would be fair to the other lake users. If they wanted to be the other side, although I can't think of any place where they could go the other side. And I think if you go further to the west, there's too much of a slope, I would imagine. So I wouldn't like to see being in that main area because for that reason, no one else can use it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Good. We go to councillor Irvine.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with everything councillor Good said, although he did hit on something that I thought did have some merit. I certainly agree that I think it would dominate the main facility and basically preclude the enjoyment of the majority of locals who want to go out there and participate in the lake. Obviously, there are 50 or 60 people at a wedding reception, you're going to need access to those toilets, and they're pretty much going to have to set the marquee up on the grass near the toilet block and pretty much own the lake for the day. Plus, I'll be setting the marquee up prior and it'll be pulled down after and all the rest. I would be much more inclined to approve a request of this nature if the marquee was to be set up on the northern shore, probably south of the dog exercise area. There's a level area and it's free of trees. It would be suitable for the installation of a marquee, but they would then further have to bring some portaloos to just take care of that. And I think they could hold that event with no impact on locals' use. There'd be no damage to irrigation infrastructure risks. There'd be no risk of damage to the lawn surfaces or anything else. I don't think then we've got any other major concerns other than, of course, they have to restrict themselves to the rules regarding glass and every other requirement to do with the lake. The only thing with that might be parking, but can probably be worked out.
Thanks, councillor Irvine. And also you have to look at, I would think insurances, of course, it's an obvious one. I would have thought that they'd have to pay for these red bins. Yes. Yeah, it's a real interesting one. I'm finding it interesting listening to what councils have to say. But I have to admit personally, when I first read, I wasn't overly warming to it, but I resolved to listen to what my colleagues had to say. I'll go now to councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just worried about precedent of allowing this one. You allow one and you can allow argument to not back anymore. I think we just ask for trouble.
Thanks, councillor Judd. Perhaps that brings us to another point, but maybe this is a catalyst to have some sort of enhanced policy framework around that. I know we're looking at a Lakes Integrated Management Plan, perhaps with an extension, we could consider that. We go to councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm inclined to agree with councillor Irvine on that building floor. I think it would support a lot of catering businesses in our shire or country weddings, marquees, but I do agree with councillor Joe Blossom, precedent, and where you stop, whether it's 21st or 18th. So I think we need to properly do a policy to cover what we're prepared to allow out there, whether it's just women, which you might have 50 or 100 or golden jubilee, all sorts of things. So if we do allow it, we'll have to form some policy for consistency.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Curran. I now go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, who sits on the Lakes and Tenerife Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, on my initial thoughts, my issues, particularly only 50, 60 people, it's not huge. About, I mean, yeah, there's issues around just where it might go and so forth. Yeah, this sort of another, something else area, but I don't acknowledge that it would be some issues. They'd have to be well aware of the glass policy and so forth. I'm not done a little all that in favour of the northern side. If they're going to have it somewhere else rather than the grass area, I think probably that car park area, the keep over Monday as you come in, the area there, they could take a much look at the water further, so it's all about, but it would be a good area there, but even on the other side, northern side, still got bank money anyway, so. I would suggest that if these people can't get it on the lawn area, they probably don't want it there anyway. So they won't want it at all. Yeah. Besides.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we probably, I mean, I know it's a council on that, said we've got all to say, but I think we should perhaps get the thoughts of the Lakes and Tenerife. I mean, they're the users of the place.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. I go now to Councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's kind of hard to make a decision to the lacking of information. So does anyone think in this room that whether we put it back to them to say we'll give us some more defined information submitted to the Lake Committee for consideration?
Thank you, Councillor Bushell. General Manager, is it, they were restricted with timings or expecting a decision at this meeting, or we're not aware of that? Because I think that Councillor Bushell makes a reasonable point, and I've heard some very good points today. The General Manager.
Well, I think the restriction on the timing is on the 3rd of December. So.
Well, they say they may alter.
Yeah.
I don't think they even know. I don't think they even know.
It's the 3rd. But look, we can certainly request more information or proposal from them and get the Lakes and Tenerife Management Committee's view and then bring it back to Assets and Operations.
Thank you. Thank you. I do think the Council Judge point is an important one too. That term precedent. I can remember Councillor Smith saying that sit there on a regular basis, but also not having a policy framework that concerns me as well. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we ask them for further details. Secondly, refer it to the Lake Tenerife Management Committee. And thirdly, that then that report comes back to our next council meeting.
Okay, nothing about a policy, draft policy being formulated, or just happy with those 3 points made.
Stage, yes.
Okay, thank you. So we captured that. Those 3 parts of the motion. So we're asking the Lakes and Tenerife Management Committee for their views.
Comment.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we will, as a matter of course, refer that to the master plan anyway. It's quite big, and it's never been something that's raised specifically, but it's going to be difficult to get an overall view of all pathways, because so lost of time or calendar path. It very much depends on the event. You know, people would be very happy if they had bands there or something playing. So very much depends on the path.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Good, are you happy with what you see? Typed up?
Yes.
You happy with that? Thank you. Is there a second? Councillor McLaren, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Further discussion, Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, just quickly, there's nothing stopping someone turning up there and having 50, 30 people there and lock up and having a party. I do think there's probably some scope here, this could be developed and there may be some possibility, but I really do think there'll be some very, very tight constraints around it because it is a public facility. We don't want to see the public excluded from their own facility unnecessarily.
Anyone who disagree? Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Well, councillors, you have a motion before you. Councillor Good and Councillor McLaren moved and seconded. The council requests further details from the applicant for further request to make September Management Committee comment and further the future report will be presented to our operations. No further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. No. The motion carried. Thanks very, very much. Now we've dealt with 16.6, the Magic Mines Festival. We then go over to page 279, 16.7, the CWA area park. Tolerance.
Paramount community interest, I believe the rentals.
Thank you, Councillor Judd, duly noted, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request from the CWA for this this meeting. Relates to well, two items, I guess. The first one is the state of or the position of Castle Park toilets and also otherwise park toilets. But secondly, is to have some form of support rail that's between a normal toilet and a disabled toilet.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to probably refer to the Australian standard. There's strict processes regarding ambulance toilets and handrails. So if we can get that reviewed.
So should you, Councillor Bushell, perhaps the Access and Equity Committee could just be referred to that?
I'd love to see our technical staff,
Engineering technical staff.
the environment services staff.
Okay.
To present back to us that it meets Australian standards. Because I don't see a rail go there and then a lady that's 9 months pregnant can't even get in the toilet.
Okay, thank you very much. So you're moving that direction? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor, I'll just get clarification. Thank you. So Councillor Bushell?
Yeah, I'd like to see that our technical staff review the Australian standards before it being request.
And then report back
Report back, yeah.
to Assets and Ops. Can you repeat it, please, Councillor Bushell?
I can't remember.
Sorry, Councillor.
Can we rewind?
That's refer the item correspondence for.
Refer to our technical staff
Refer
to
to
look
the
into the Australian
technical
standard
staff.
to ensure that any introduction of a railing system in the existing toilets meets the standards. And then report back.
To, yeah, Assets and Ops. Thank you. Second information, Councillor Group, thank you. Discussion, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Half the parks in the stronger communities, it's going to be addressed anyway. The only other one is the Palpate park. Certainly half the parks are on sites for.
My apologies, I should have just said part of it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good reminder. So, move and second are happy to. Palpate's
Yeah,
park
sorry.
tomorrow. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on the water column.
Yeah, I missed that too, so that's fine. Now, move second discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Just comments, I just sort of think if someone can't use the toilet normally, they need some support, then that's why disabled toilets are there. I just don't know that we need something in between, just because you're not in a wheelchair or whatever. Yeah, doesn't mean you can't use a disabled toilet, so I'm just not quite sure why we need perhaps 3 levels of toilets when the Like I said, if you, the normal toilet, the setups, are not right, well, you can, most places now got disabled toilets, so. Not necessarily, really.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Go to councillor Irvine.
Yeah, and I think these issues have been well and truly addressed in the Australian standards. And the range of toilet options that are available cater to most needs. Introducing this additional handrailing whilst it might seem appropriate, I think the biggest issue council probably faces is even keeping our current stock compliant, let alone adding further complexity to a situation like that. I really think council probably just needs to ensure that they provide current compliance at every opportunity with their public toilets, and I'd probably reject this request.
Thank you, councillor Irvine. I go to councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Councillor Sinclair's motion, there are 3 types of toilet. There's accessible, ambulance, and normal.
Sorry.
So ambulance are a wider toilet than the normal, and they do have a one.
Can we have the mover on there, please, so at least so I can be aware of it. So I've just been advised that I didn't have a second, so I'm sorry we should be.
It's almost.
Oh, I was, right, yes, I thought I did, because thank you. So councillor Bush and councillor Good have moved that motion that we have made. Now, we have a motion that's before us. There's no further discussion. I'm going to put the motion. And just remember, what the motion is here is not committing council to anything. So I put the motion to you, although, oh, sorry, the motion to the acting environmental services director.
Just to note it as part of any advice that we would like to advise that we are going to be applying for funding for upgrade of Harbour Buck toilets, and they will meet accessibility standards.
Thank you. Without further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion is carried. I do thank you very much. We do have 3 late items of correspondence. The first one that we have is 16.8. The local government of New South Wales, the Red Fleet fight continues. And I prefer to be given.
What do you got?
So this is a loose leaf late report,
We don't have
local government New South Wales. You should have that in your late reports. So have you got the pile of late reports?
Starts at 16.9.
Keep
Keep going to see if it's made it.
Oh,
Right, so it's out of order. We apologise
that's all right.
sincerely for that. And it's just been very challenging with one thing and another, of course. Yes, the 16.8, the back of your doc, which you should have got the emails sent to you directly anyway in relation to this from the president. Yeah, you do remember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you indicated, this in relation to the red fleet issue. It just continues to absolutely baffle everyone who's involved in it. You'll see the response or the letter from the president of the local government of New South Wales outlining the meeting that they had. The result of that was totally unacceptable, and hence there's a recommendation there that we make urgent representations to our local member, who is also the Emergency Services Minister, in relation to a response received from local government of New South Wales and country events.
Thank you. I'm seeing we are included in that too. Councillor Good.
There, I'll move that way.
You had to include Rock as well.
I know, I move the recommendation.
So not rewrite.
Yes, and further that re-rock be invited.
Thank you. Councillor Good, moving recommendation for the inclusion of representations to rewrite. Second, the Deputy Mayor. Moved and seconded, discussion, councillor Judd.
Mr. Mayor, I want to take the lawyer comment by the president of the page 84 and halfway down. My experience of the person doesn't understand the argument, they bring large numbers with them to back up their own.
It's right, councillor Judd, and I just got my blood pressure up, my gander up, and all of the above, and I read it, I rang the president of the LGSW to confirm what was written, also the chairman of country mayors. And evidently, the treasurer seems to hold and carry a lot of sway, evidently. The deputy mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what my opinion on this last meeting, but this is something we've got to keep the foot on the pedal here and just keep the pressure on the government because, as people said, just don't believe they may come to a decision like this. And then to ask local government to assess the units and value them. And yeah, that's going to cost money and time. No indication that's going to be funded to do that. Either, so it's totally ridiculous.
Thank you very much. Councillors, you have a motion there, and that is, of course, recommendation with the inclusion of representations to rewrite on the motion of councillor Good and also the deputy mayor, councillor Sinclair. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The motion carried. Thank you. We go to further correspondence 16.9, Jenny Shire Council, the General Manager. Council's had a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an approach you can see from GA Council for the use of our whole state, because they've used for a number of years for their event, their Christmas celebration. I advised GA the new stage was one available higher, but they said, well, they've expressed they've expressed an interest in purchasing that stage when it eventually goes up for sale. So they do have an interest in it, and it's what the council wishes to assist. They've used it in the past. They come across, they pick it up, they do it back in good order, clean. So, and it has been happening for quite a few years.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, do we still really seriously need that overall stage? I mean, if someone wants to buy it, let's let them have the damn thing.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I do think we currently have on the books that we retain it for 1 year. The old stage, so when that year runs out, Mr. General Manager, or Mr. Assets, would you? Put your thing on. You know.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Listen, as soon as, we're confident in the robustness of the new stage, which I think we're pretty much at that stage, we definitely need to sell that stage. And the cost of us to keep that with registration and insurance, and I think, to be honest, I think the life of day costs of that stage are maybe around 170,000. Like it might sound like much, but it's portioned across the fleet. But definitely, it's not been used or we've got another piece of plant that replaces them. Can't hold that. You shouldn't be holding that.
Thanks, Mr. Manager. We appreciate the comments. Therefore, Council, just because Council have resolved that previously, if Council wishes to change that position, they do so, but obviously not selling to someone will have to go through the perfect channel. Go to Councillor Irvine.
Where do we stand? This trailer obviously doesn't comply with accessibility and safety OHS type compliance. we're subletting it out to June, are they going to assume the responsibility? But then obviously that becomes a very murky situation. You can't really all hire something and have it sublet and then they assume responsibility if it turns out not to be compliant. So I've got no problem hiring them, but I'd just like that clarified if I could. There's no risk of any issues returning to council. And on the other matter of the new mobile stage, it makes perfect sense to sell the old one when we are assured of the robustness of the new stage. However, it must be noted that the new mobile stage caused significant problems with commissioning and had to have major reworks and additional rams and hinges and all sorts of things applied. And the old stage got us out of trouble over that period and it did 3 jobs. So I totally agree with selling the old stage once we are assured that the new stage is going to perform as we would hope.
Thank you, Councillor Irvin, but we also need to acknowledge that it's, the new stage may also, God forbid, but it could also have something go wrong with it after a 12-month period as well. So we go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we agree to travel to Jenny Shire, and furthermore that they accept liability from when they pick it up until it's returned.
Thank you. So you're saying to lease it, is that the cost or is it free of charge?
What did we do in the past?
Thank you, the General Manager.
We haven't charged them in the past, but they meet all the costs in terms of picking up or we do nothing apart from the bottom stage.
Councillor Good.
So that we would we allow them to use it at no cost, provided they accept all liability from pick up to return.
Accede to the request. Thank you, Councillor Good. So moving that we accede to the request, and it is what was the terminology?
Provided they accept.
Provided they accept as is.
And liability from pick up to
From
return.
pick up to return, yes. Thanks, Councillor Good. Is there a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. I go to the works engineering manager, engineering works manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just want to see clarification on the discussion around sale. We've had discussion around sale of that already. And just want to check that councillors are happy for that to be dispersed before they current connection.
We can discuss the sale if council wish to in a separate, a separate motion. Manager, is happy as the assets engineering manager wish to say anything?
Only that I was happy to bring the report back to council around the sale, but if you're happy to make that decision after this motion, we'll go down.
Thank you. Further discussion with the general manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The logic around the timing of the sale of the stage was that we get through the spring and summer period, which is the busy period for the stage, and the other stage will have quite a workout during that time. It wasn't so much a 12-month period, it was getting through a number of hires before we sold the other stage.
Thank you. Now, further discussion on the motion before you. Councillor Good and Councillor Irvine move. Accede to the request provided that Jenny Shire Council accept liability from pick up to return. No further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. We have, now, in relation to the sale, is council happy for the engineers to bring a report back in relation to that? So if it's consensus, if we can make please that will happen on your big list there. Thanks very much, Council. Let's go to the last urgent matter on correspondence. Sorry, Councillor Ryan.
To clean on the hearings with the community centre.
Oh, yes, thanks, Councillor Ryan. Duly noted. Family Expo 16.10, the general manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, what this letter is about is seeking approval of the whole Family Expo in Gloucester Park on the 26th of October. It is funded, the project is funded under the New South Wales Community Events, Regional Community Events Program. So it's just seeking
Approval to conduct the event at Gloucester Park. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry, there was the trigger finger there.
That one.
The councillor Good.
If we move that recommendation, will that, to support the event, would that encompass the using of the Gloucester Park?
I don't think that's the correct, my view is, I don't think that's the correct, I think that's too open-ended. I think if you consider councillor Good and council grant approval to the organisation to conduct the event at Gloucester Park.
I move that way.
Thank you. Seconder, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moving second, discussion with General Manager.
Can I just raise one other issue, and that is they have asked for chairs and tables from the town hall. The current policy is that you don't let the chairs and tables out of the town hall. So that will require a slight change or a decision of council for that.
So the policy is that, yeah, that we don't allow it as it stands unless
Unless
by
council.
way of resolution. Thank you. Moving second, discussion, councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a requirement for a small event.
I should have done that, shouldn't I? Thank you. Small event application form. Thank you. Further discussion, councillors? Further discussion, councillor Irvine.
I'm reluctant to see the idea of town hall furniture being used in an outdoor setting. I can just see cheerleaders coming back from the dirt and grass and just a little bit extra wear and tear in that outdoor environment. I'm quite happy to support it. Now, I'd just like to see them, if they can source their tables and chairs somewhere else, because I think all they're going to do is carry the dirt and grass and everything else back into the town hall. I don't know whether that furniture is really the suitable thing to be taken to the park.
Thanks very much, councillor Irvine. Well, if this motion that councillor Good and the Deputy Mayor have got up, it won't be including the chairs. So I'll put the motion to this further discussion, councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As one being involved in the Park Hall community for many years, we hide our chairs and tables out and even though people have best of intentions, they do come back with bed legs and things like this. And now we've got the newer chairs we don't worry about. We've got a group of old blue chairs which we still have left there. It's not worth the risk.
Thanks, councillor Judd. If there's no further discussion, councillors, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Nothing, I hope, of an urgent late nature, Mr. General Manager.
No,
Thank you very much. Councillors, we now proceed to notice of motion. We have not any notice of motion. We go to urgent business without notice. Go to councillor Bushy. No, we're not there yet. Yeah, so we'll do business without notice first, then information paper. So you're happy, councillor Bushell? Yeah, all that's happy. Those are business without notice, councillor Irvine.
Yeah, I want to bring the council's attention, there's been some pretty serious things going on in the background lately. Some rumours have been circulating throughout the community that I've avoided staff members. Some of these allegations have been brought directly to me. And there's been further allegations received as far as field as Wagga Wagga and referred back to me by someone who would be prepared to make a statement by the witness the making of this allegation. I am deeply concerned that this allegation would be circulating within the community. I don't believe there's any basis for it to be circulating within the community. And I'd like to see these matters addressed. I'm unsure as to the appropriate way to address something of this nature. However, one option is some form of public inquiry to ensure that the matter is properly investigated, and any doubt that the community may have to that effect is discussed openly in a fashion where the community can access the information. I'll leave it at that at this point in time, but I want to bring to council's attention that that's been occurring. I'm quite happy to make any statement to the effect of the information that I have at hand. And as I just stated, the other person who's brought that to my attention has also stated that they would make a statement to that effect. So not only does this rumour affect myself, my family, my business, it also affects Temora Shire Council and everyone present here. So I'll be interested to see what council or how council would propose to deal with this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I'm not sure if the General Manager has comments in relation to what we just heard.
Well, I know what you're talking about, so it's very difficult to make a comment on.
Councillor Irvine.
Well, the rumour is that I bullied a staff member, and that's been made directly to me by 3 members of the community. And further, it's been also made to someone who has reported it back to me, and they would report that. So it's a very serious allegation to have made about you, and I think there's obviously something that needs to be done regarding it.
So is this a current member, Councillor Irvine, of staff?
No.
Right. Okay, Mr. General Manager, do you have advice? I don't propose that we're going to discuss this at length at all, that there's got to be processes and avenues for Councillor Irvine to pursue if they haven't already been pursued. The General Manager.
Yeah, I would suggest that it be put in writing to us.
Thank you. So, Councillor Irvine, if you can put those concerns in writing. I will say that we have been, I thought you were going to be raising the issue in relation to what happened to your vehicle, which is just an absolute disgrace, which seems to be a series of those sorts of things been happening around the Shire to several people, and it's an absolute disgrace, but I understand police are assisting in relation to investigations. To that end, so anything further, Councillor Irvine? No, thank you. Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just elaborating on the comment before about the donation budget. Just remind councils that a number of events this year, I'll give an example of American Law Festival, have been covered by our grant from the community free events. So the costs there that are going to be will be coming out of our donation budget and covered any elsewhere. So when it comes up next year, it won't allow our board to get that. And my second item there is was mentioned before about the mines, a lot of our sites are mines about. And this report looks like the Berry Park DNS ball will be a donor as well, because it can't get insurance. It's totally Australia wide thing as well. It is a shame. DNS balls that started here at Park in 1983, and up until it's missed the last 2 years because of COVID, but it's pumped at least $500,000 into Berry Park and district community. And on average, it was putting out $30,000 every year donations to different community bodies. And yeah, that sort of money was very handy to like little, the schoolboys got jumpers and things like this. And that's going to be one of the things that can be missed in the future.
You're right. Thank you, Councillor Judd. It's spot on. It's, I don't know, we seem to hear from governments and oppositions that when we go, when we want to be elected, that we reduce red tape, and it just seems, it's just an endless supply of it. Anyway, thank you, councillor Judd. Councillor McLaren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on from the Director of Administration Finance concern about next year's budget. I'm concerned about the depreciation impact of all these strong country communities that just keep coming our way, and then the fire brigade issue. And I just wanted to get a picture of the impact that depreciation is having. They're giving us all this money, but I'm just worried what the end game is for us if we're being forced to accept this and build our asset base in an unsustainable way. And I'm just keen to know what the director feels is going to be the impact on our budget next year, and just to give us an image of what this depreciation is doing to our budget.
Thank you, councillor McLaren. The Director of Administration Finance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I probably don't have the figures offhand,
No.
for the impact of the grants, but probably more to the point is the ongoing revaluation cycle. So, we had to revalue our other infrastructure, sewage and, what was the third class? As well?
It's other infrastructure, it's including the airport.
Yeah, including the airport. But so we knew we had to do that, but then we also had to do a desktop revaluation of all of our assets this year, just due to the high inflation environment that we're in. So the total revaluation increment this year was 43 million, I think it was, or 46 million. So that just walks the grant funded projects we're talking about. The revaluation cycle, yeah, with depreciation is critical.
Thank you, councillor McLaren. Councillor Oliver, this is that notice. Thank you, councillor Reinhold. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have one. Councillors, councillors and senior staff have received a lovely invitation sent to me from Mr. Peter Ward of the Temora Railway Hotel, and they have extended an invitation to us for a private look-see at their hotel and renovations, etc. And so I'll be liaising with our executive officer to arrange, executive assistant rather, Mrs. Rands, to secure a date and a time after work one day, which is so terrific. And I'm deeply grateful to them for extending that invitation to us. And you'll be notified in due course when that will be. So no further business without notice. Councillor Irvine.
Just to follow on from that comment, I put some more on the map with the address code, the drawer. I did a Google search for the news this morning. I just actually got on Google News this morning and it came up with the third entry unprompted without a search. It was in the Board of Mail, so I don't know about it. All publicity is good publicity, however, they certainly, everyone knows they're about.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Look, I have to say, I've been quite appalled, frankly, at some of the certainly the social media posts condemning and rubbishing in a very nasty way, like I think most people would be towards Shire citizens. Everyone's entitled to their views, but they are not entitled, in my view, to get vicious, violent, nasty, as they have done to the Ward family. I think it's a disgrace, and I commend the Railway Hotel for doing what they believe is right. It's their business. If people don't support their position, they're happy to go and support other businesses. Whether you agree or not, you can't deny that they have the right to do what they think is right for their business. Thank you. There being no further business without notice, let's now please have a motion to receive the information paper. Councillor Busher and Councillor Cook, moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Items out of the information paper, Councillor Busher. Sorry. No.
Sorry.
Information paper. Thank you, Councillor Busher.
Just with the road safety officer report, just wanted to know that council put on their Facebook page about the demerit points for next week's claims. Wednesday, so they start Wednesday evening through Sunday, so if anyone can take notice of that.
Good reminder. Thank you, councillor Bushell. Councillors, any other items of information paper? If not, councillors, in accordance with section 10 of the Local Government Act 1993, advised that civil matters contain confidential, according to require a motion to have those matters considered. Deputy Mayor, thank you, councillor Reinhold, moved and seconded. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. Those are yours. Thank you. Is recording stopped? Thank you. So we're on. Thank you very much, and we're resuming to open council. And I advise council that the following motions have been brought forward from closed session to open session. Motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Reinhold. Councillor Zalba moves into confidential at 7:03 p.m. Minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee meeting held on the 6th of September 2022. The motion of Councillor McLaren and Councillor Oliver was resolved that the reports be received. The motion was carried. The motion of Councillor Good and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted. The motion was carried. Minutes of the Economic Development Committee held on the 6th of September 2022. The motion of Councillor McLaren and Councillor Judd. It was resolved that the reports be received. The motion was carried. The motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Oliver. It was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted. The motion was carried. Regional Housing Strategic Planning Fund. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Oliver, it was resolved that council make an application under the New South Wales Government Regional Housing Strategic Planning Fund for the preparation of a stormwater developer servicing plan, and that motion was carried. Cleaning contract tender, motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Oliver, that council accept the lowest tendered amounts for council chambers administration offices cleaning, tender number 2022-01, and Bundawarra Centre, VIC, Town Hall Complex, NICC House, Depot and Public Amenities, tender number 2022.
Correct.
No, there's an amendment.
Dash 02. Just be patient, Councillor Wood. It's on that piece again. Both being submitted by Dynamic Cleaning Services. The amendment was put by Councillor Irvine and Councillor McLaren that council accept tender 2, 2022-01 and tender 3, 2022-02. The amendment became a motion and the motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Oliver and Councillor McLaren, it was resolved that council moves the motions from closed session into open council. The motion is carried. The motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Bushell, it was resolved that council moves out of closed session and into open council at 7:43 p.m. Those are the motions that have been brought forward from closed session to open. Accordingly, I require a motion to have those resolutions formally adopted. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Second, Councillor McLaren. Moved and seconded. All those in that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. The motion carried. There being no further business for Temora Shire Council, I thank councillors very much. I thank our senior staff, and I declare the meeting closed.